Yo, what's up YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I am back with another video. Now, as we all know, the NBA season has come to a conclusion, so what me and my boy B Souls decided to do was do a collaboration and walk through you all with our playoff predictions. On my channel, I'm doing the Eastern Conference. On his channel, he's doing the Western Conference, so make sure you go show him some love. All the links will be in the description below, and if you want to hear my Western Conference predictions, you have to go to his channel to go check it out. But with all that being said, let's get right into the video. So, the number 1 and number 8 seed in the Eastern Conference is the Boston Celtics versus the Chicago Bulls. Upset that a lot of people, not a lot of people, some people are predicting. And, you know, B Souls, he's the Boston Celtics fan, so I'm going to let him take over real quick and tell me what his thoughts is on this matchup with the Celtics versus the Bulls.
Most people thought the Celtics are going to be one of the worst first seeds of all time, but I think they're still good enough to beat the Bulls in 6. Knowing my team, this won't be an easy one, and the Celtics haven't made it past the first round the past 2 years, but I'm still confident that we can get past the Bulls in 6.
Actually, I'm going to have to say the same thing, man. I think that the Bulls, they are somewhat of a formidable opponent, but I don't really think that they're that strong, especially on the perimeter offensively, and they rely heavily on Jimmy Butler. The one X factor for me for the Bulls for that series is Dwayne Wade. He had a good 2-3 weeks of rest because of the injury before the playoffs, so I think he's deadly. But I will have to agree with you. I have the Boston Celtics in 6. Moving on to the next series, we have the Washington Wizards and the Atlanta Hawks, the middle of the road teams, 4 and 5 seed. The Washington Wizards have been wildly impressive this season with John Wall and Bradley Beal, that dynamic duo in the backcourt, while you have the Atlanta Hawks, who have been stagnant over the past couple of seasons. However, they are a consistent team that makes the playoffs. This is a very, very interesting series. I'll go first on this one because I am, you know, I'm an Atlanta native, so I do believe that this team has some firepower, especially in the front court, which is a massive problem for the Washington Wizards. I think Paul Millsap is actually going to give this team a lot of problems, and then Dwight, if you can get him going in the playoffs, I think he's also going to give them massive problems. The only problem with the Hawks is that they don't have anybody to really guard John Wall, which is going to be a really big problem. Hopefully Kent can show up, but I'm still going to lean towards Washington in 7. I think it's actually going to go all the way to a 7-game series.
I also agree with Lo. I think this definitely has some upset potential, but I actually have the Wizards in 6 instead of 7 because I feel like the Hawks don't really have anyone that can guard Bradley Beal or John Wall, both of them. But just because the Hawks are being coached by Mike Budenholzer, I think this is still going to be a tough one. But I believe the Wizards can pull this out in 6.
Next up, we have the Toronto Raptors going up against the young and upcoming Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks is a team that is extremely interesting, especially with their dynamic with Giannis being that point forward type of a player. Not too many players, not just in the Eastern Conference, but in the entire league that can really match up that well with Giannis. However, over the past couple of months, the Toronto Raptors have really pieced together a lot of great players on that team. However, due to their injuries, you might not have noticed how great they are. But B-So, tell me what you think about this matchup. Tell me who you think is going to come out in this series, because I do believe it's fairly interesting.
I feel like this one is more of a 4 versus 5 matchup than the actual 4 versus 5 matchup, because the Bucks really were rolling throughout the season until Jabari got injured, and I feel like they have hit their stride lately. And I feel like this is going to be Giannis's come out party, but the Raptors just have too much firepower, and the Bucks are still experienced. But I got Toronto in 7. I think this can go to 7.
I have Toronto in 5, actually. Even though I think that it's going to be, we still got Toronto, but even though I do believe that Giannis is going to be extremely impressive in this series, especially because, you know, there's not too many players that can match up on him on that organization, on that team. But the inexperience throughout the rest of the entire roster is really what's scary to me. Their big men inside going up against Ibaka and Valanciunas, I think they'll be eaten alive inside. And then if Giannis is the only player that's really playmaking, I really don't see too much going on. But I can see it kind of going a little further. But I have Toronto in 5. And finally, for the last matchup in the first round, we have the Cavaliers versus the Indiana Pacers. LeBron James making another presence in the playoffs for the Eastern Conference, along with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. I shouldn't have to say anymore. And then on the other hand, you have the Indiana Pacers, a team that has consistently struggled throughout the entire season. However, over the past month and a half, Paul George has really put it on in the regular season and making a push for the All-NBA third team. I think that the Cavaliers, even though they are a really, really good team, I do believe they're going to struggle with this matchup because LeBron is going to have his hands tied with Paul George. And defensively, I see some problems that's going to happen. I actually think this is going to go to a game 6. I'm still leaning Cavaliers, don't get me wrong. However, I do believe that if there's any team, any player that can exploit a defense, it is Indiana with Paul George. And I do believe with the addition of Lance Stevenson towards the end of the season, it's not enough pieces on the perimeter that can guard all those players if Jeff Teague, Lance, and Paul George get going. But I still have Cleveland in 6.
I actually have the Cavs in 5, but I do think it's going to be a tough 5 games because the Pacers do have some pieces like Paul George and Jeff Teague who can turn it on in the playoffs, but I feel like just the experience of the Cavs and the talent that they have is just going to be too much. But I wouldn't be surprised if it did go to 6, but just safely I'm going to go with 5.
So in the second round, we have the Boston Celtics matching up with the Washington Wizards. Boston should have some matchup problems, in my opinion, when it comes to Washington because they really don't have any pieces, in my opinion, that's going to match up with John Wall. And John Wall should be able to feast extremely easy on the smaller guards. However, I'm going to toss it to Biso because, again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I watch a lot of Boston Celtics games. So, Biso, tell me what you think about this matchup between Washington and the Boston Celtics.
Okay, so this might seem kind of biased because, you know, I am a Boston Celtics fan, but I have the Celtics in 7. And I do believe this is going to be one of the best series of this year. These two teams do not like each other, and they both have something to prove. But with the Celtics having home court advantage and having success against the Wizards in the regular season, the Celtics will definitely play with confidence against this team. But it is going to be a tough one. And with the matchup problems, I know John Wall will be a hassle to play against, but the Celtics do have Avery Bradley. The question is, can Jay Crowder lock down Bradley Beal? And I think if they can succeed at doing that, I think they will win against the Washington Wizards.
I just don't think they match up that well with this team because of how aggressive, the aggressiveness of John Wall and even Bradley Beal from time to time. Avery Bradley is a really, really good defender, but at 6'2", it's only so much that you can do. And Isaiah Thomas, you're going up against a team like this. This is when you're going to really start to see some of his defensive liabilities start to show, because if he's not guarding John Wall, which I don't think he is, and if he's not guarding Bradley Beal, which again, I really don't think he is neither, then they're going to put him on Otto Porter, which is completely fine. However, Porter is like 6'6", 6'7", and he's basically just going to be overshooting Isaiah Thomas. I agree this is going to go to a game 7. As of right now, I'm leaning towards Boston as well. However, I think that John Wall and Bradley Beal, I wouldn't be surprised if they had one of those crazy games where both of them put up like 40 points and it swings into the favor of the Washington Wizards. That's an extremely interesting series, but I agree, I have Boston in 7. Then moving into the next matchup in the second round of the Eastern Conference, we have the Toronto Raptors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, another great matchup in my opinion. Like I stated before, Toronto, in my opinion, has to be the second best team. If I had to go ahead and just knock this one out real quick, I think this is actually going to be a 7-game series. I'm still leaning towards Cleveland. However, Toronto is a fantastically built team. They've really brought in pieces that help deter LeBron from entering the lane with Serge Ibaka, and you already have Valanciunas. And then Kyle Lowry should be able to guard Kyrie. This is a team that actually matches up with this Cleveland Cavaliers team extremely well. I wish we would have been able to see this in the conference finals, because I do believe this would have actually been a better conference finals than Boston versus Cleveland, but I still have Cleveland in 7.
I'm going to have to disagree with Lo on this one. I don't think this is going to go to 7. I have the Cavs in 5. And
whoa.
I don't think, I don't, this is not a knock on Toronto. I just feel like this is the series where LeBron and the Cavs just turn on the switch that I know they have, that they do every year. Like in 2015, we thought they were going to compete against the Hawks. What did they do? They swept them in 4. And I just feel like, again, it's not a knock on Toronto. I think they are the second best team in the East. But this is where Cleveland just turns on the switch. And
I can see that happening, because I was thinking about this series before, and LeBron could just turn that switch where he just guards DeMar, and DeMar just isn't scoring anything at all in the last 5 minutes of a very important game.
Yeah.
But 5, that's a stretch. That's a stretch. But
maybe 6, but
finally in the conference finals, we have the Boston Celtics going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going to let B-Soul start this one off, and we'll figure out what he has to say, and let's see if that Celtic bias he pulls out of him real quick.
All right, that Celtics bias ends here. Okay, I got the Cavs in 6. Look, I love my Celtics. I think they will put up a fair fight. I think it's going to be a competitive 6. More than people expected, but the Cavs, to me, are just too much for this team. There's too much talent. There's too many mismatches. And in general, it's just too much for a 5'9" point guard to handle. Even though it is Isaiah Thomas, it's just too much.
I'm actually going to say Cleveland in 4. I think this is actually going to be a sweep. And I ain't going to lie, I'm pretty biased against Boston, because I just don't believe in this team.
Y'all sleeping.
I don't believe in this team, and the thing that really annoys me about Boston is that they should have went and got Paul George or somebody, because again, this is a perfect example of where you need a player like PG or Jimmy Butler in that case as well, because they got the number 1 seed, and yet they're still not good enough to take advantage of it. And this is something that I don't believe that they're going to be able to achieve again. Defensively, they just don't match up at all. There's nobody on that team outside of Jay Crowder, maybe Jaylen Brown, but that's a stretch, that can guard anyone that's 6'6" and taller. And eventually you knew you was going to run into that problem when it comes to matching up against a player like LeBron, or even a Paul George or a Giannis. There's too many players in the Eastern Conference who are 6'6" and taller, who can dominate a game. And the fact that we're another year that Boston doesn't have a player like that is extremely concerning. So that's the reason why I say in 4, because it just doesn't match up at all. If Jay Crowder is guarding LeBron, that is a terrible matchup. It's just a terrible matchup. Either way you cut it. Speechless.
Okay. All right. Y'all sleeping, man. Y'all sleeping.
All right. So move on to the Western Conference, man. Move on to the West.